Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Let's get set up. Bismillah. Okay, we're streaming in portrait at the moment because I don't have my tripod with me. Wa alaikum salam, thanks for joining me. Wa alaikum salam, thanks for joining me. We're just going to get set up. We'll probably spend 5 minutes just getting set up, welcoming you guys into the stream. Yeah, I was just saying we're streaming in portrait at the moment because I don't have my tripod to turn you guys over. So we're just going to stream like this for now. So if it's not an inconvenience for you guys to hold your phones upright. And I'll get myself mic'd up for a minute just while we're waiting for some of you guys to join. So how are you guys today? Those of you who are here. Let me know you can hear me okay, by the way. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. How are you guys today? Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Who have we got? Okay, who else is here? We've got a couple of people. We'll wait for some more people to arrive. And yeah, we'll get into it. Assalamu alaikum. Good to see you guys this evening. Wa alaikum assalam. Wa alaikum assalam. Please like the video, by the way. Those of you who are here. Arabic in 60 steps is rubbish. Get him off. Alright, how are you guys today? Who have we got? Muhammad, wa alaikum assalam. Rabi'a, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Shahiba, active student on the program, mashallah. Assalamu alaikum, Shahiba. How are you today? How's Trinidad? Who else? We've got a few more of you. Those of you, I think there's 8 of you here. Please like the video, by the way. That helps me in the algorithm and stuff like that. So, yeah, give me a like, please. Get the likes up. Wa alaikum assalam, Hussein. Thank you very much. Let's get the likes up, please, guys. Bright and beautiful. Well, can't say the same about London. This is the beautiful view from my office in London. So, essentially, the view of another building. That's a pretty good view, really, to be honest. But yeah, that is the situation. Not quite like Trinidad. Today it's been wet and drizzly, so business as usual, really. Okay, great. Where are the rest of you guys from? Is that in central London? Sort of. I don't want to be too exact with where I work and stuff like that, but between zones 1 to 2, yeah. Cool. Who else is here? We'll give another couple of minutes, inshallah. Not that I have like a particular topic planned for today or anything. I just wanted us to come and hang out, really. Yeah. Bismillah. Okay. Okay. Right, who else is here? Come on, guys, don't be shy. Say hello. Nice mug. One of the best. bit of product placement there. Cool. Right, what else we got? Okay. So, I don't know if we're going to do the same time next week, by the way. My son has started jiu-jitsu now, and it's at 4:30 on Fridays. So, and I really want to I really want to go to that. Today, to be honest, I was quite upset that I didn't make it today. But yeah, as of next week, we may delay this and do a little bit later. Yeah, but we'll see about that. Am I losing weight? I don't know. My wife certainly doesn't think so. But I don't know. I don't know. I do have like fitness goals and stuff like that. I do want to be well and take care of myself and stuff, of course. But yeah, I don't know really. I developed a strong dad bod after I got married and had kids, and I don't know if that's changing anytime soon. You know, in our English winters, it's very easy to put on weight in our winters. You know, when it's colder and stuff like that. Yeah, it's yeah, it's a bit harder to lose weight in the winter. In the summer, I always lean down a little bit. Yeah, go pray Maghrib inshallah and then come back. I came in here a little bit earlier. I managed to pray just before we started. Yeah, I have a student who usually comes here. Student who's from an area nearby. He usually comes into the office. That's why sometimes I work from home, sometimes I'm in the office, sometimes I work in a coffee shop or something. I like that variety in my work. Yeah, sometimes get to work at home, but obviously I've got two little boys. I've got a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, so it's not always the most conducive to, you know, to productivity at home. Okay, let's see what else we got. Okay. Okay, so there's a question. I have a question, Ustaz. In formal situations, is it mandatory to use the Hamza Elif, as in writing Hamzatul Qata, rather than just an Elif without it? Meaning, if I write Iran instead of Iran in my exam, will I lose marks? Perhaps, depending on what word it is, because the Hamza is an actual letter. So like yeah, I mean, yeah, probably. Depending on what kind of exam. Like if you were doing the Arabic in 60 Steps program, I might mark you down for that, yeah. Yeah, but yeah. On the balance of the whole exam though, there might be some cases where I'd be very lenient on that, like, you know, writing the Hamza or not writing the Hamza. I think, yeah, on the balance of the exam, I may deduct a mark for that in some cases. Like if it's a very common word that students really should know, does have a Hamza in it, then they should really write it. Like if you're writing something, for example, like bi'idhnillah, we know it's not bi'idhnillah. We know it's bi'idhnillah. Like with the permission of Allah, then I would expect students to write a Hamza under idhn. And then on the opposite side of that, if students were to write a Hamza where you certainly don't need it, and with practice not needing it, like for example at the beginning of the word ism, obviously when I say it sounds like there's a cutting Hamza, but there's not in the name ism. That we don't say bismillahi, we say bismillahi. It's just an elif. There's no Hamza in there. But it's a very common mistake for people to write it. Yeah, but I mean in very common words like that, students shouldn't be doing that. When to use hel and elif in the beginning of questions. So yeah, hel and elif, we call this elif ul istifham, the asking of questions, and there's very little difference really between hel and to be honest, in the scope of the Arabic in 60 Steps program, I teach you there's not so much a difference. When we look at the Quran, we do see a slight difference between them. Like and there are like entire entries into Arabic grammar books that talk about the differences between these two, but I don't concern myself with the depths of it too much on the Arabic in 60 Steps program, but I would encourage students just to look at examples that they're both used, examples of them being used in the Quran. Sometimes in the case of Elif ul Istifham, the question can be kind of rhetorical, sometimes not necessarily requiring an answer, but that's not always the case. Like, you know, I suppose inherently all of the questions in the Quran are rhetorical because Allah doesn't require an answer from you, right? And Allah uses both of them. أَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي يُكَذِّبُ بِالدِّينِ. Allah uses the in that case and uses hel with hel ataka hadithu Musa. You know, Allah uses both of them to more or less mean the same thing. Like would there be much of a difference in the meaning if Allah had said between hel ataka hadithu Musa or ataka hadithu Musa, right? I don't know if would have been much of a difference in the meaning. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. When is this exam? What does it involve? The exam is when you finish the program. So when you complete all 60 steps and you're happy that you know the program, then you send me an email and I have an exam written up for you, and you have 5 days to complete it, and then I mark it. And if you're successful, you'll receive a handwritten letter of congratulations from me and your certificate in the post. And if you're not successful, which means if you get less than 80%, which is 48 marks out of the possible 60, then you'll receive an email from me saying, we need to have a call just to brush up on a few things. Of all of the students I've ever failed, that conversation has always been, you need to brush up on step 9 and step 12. That's almost always the case. Because in step 12, we go over some common reasons for making a verb mansoob. أريد أن آكل, like making آكل have a fatha on the end. Saying حتى, and then the verb that comes after it having a fatha on the end. حتى يحب, until he loves, or something like that. Students often miss those marks. And I look at it and I mark an exam of a student who's at the end of the program. And I think, this I can't pass this student really, if they struggle with this. So that's usually what it is. And then I've never had someone fail twice. Like usually if they don't pass the exam on the first time, I'll have a brief conversation with them and I'll say, look, you dropped marks on this step, revise these steps. And then they've always passed the second time. The best mark I've ever given, I think, is 59. I don't think I've ever given a 60, by the way. There was a question from Shahiba as well. Let me get these questions back up again. Do you have to pay for this? No, you don't. No, there's no extra fees. There's no surprises on the Arabic in 60 Steps program. Everything in terms of resources and in terms of support through the WhatsApp group and stuff like that, all of that's included as a one-time price on the program. The only thing there is an extra fee for is the academy, but that's because that's an ongoing service. Okay, next question. I have 1,000 grammar questions, but can't remember even one now. I'm already on an advanced level and using a dialect, so my grammar really needs some practice. Yeah, that's not an uncommon experience, I guess. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Do you still currently do anything for your own Arabic improvements on a regular basis? Yeah, of course I do. I have to, yeah. It's already reading for me at the moment. Like there's books that I enjoy and stuff like that. So it's more just dipping into those and having conversations about them really. I'm not like enrolled on a formal program. I have considered like doing a master's in Arabic literature or something before, but I've not done that. But of course, like teachers should also be students. If a teacher's not also a student, then that's probably going to catch up with them at some point. And so I do, but it's not something formal. I suppose that the only next things for me would be like a degree in the Arab world, or a master's degree in Arabic literature or something would be the next step for me, or a PhD maybe. But I'm not really interested in doing any more kind of formal education like that. I don't think. I'm certainly not interested in paying 20 grand for a master's like you have to now, or probably a lot more than that in the US for those of you guys over the pond. Who else have we got here? What's your favourite Arabic literature? Probably there's a lot of like modern Arabic literature that I really like. Just in terms of its accessibility, like modern Arabic literature. That's probably my favourite is travel writings, other rihlat literature. But I also like modern Arabic poetry. Yeah. Sorry guys, let me just check something. Keep questions coming in, inshallah, we'll catch up on them. Should we go live somewhere else, by the way? Because I've got another phone. Should we go live on TikTok as well, maybe? Or on Instagram or something too? What else you guys got? Any of you guys who are watching who haven't liked the video yet, please do like the video. Helps in the algorithm a lot. We'll get the likes up. Okay. Alright, any more questions? Bring them in. Basic question. Okay, go ahead. Let me have a look. I'm just going to scroll back and see if I've missed anything. What about if I write Elia instead of earlier? I don't know if there's any difference in the meaning between those two words. I don't know. Doesn't that just mean like a like mechanics or something, or a mechanism of something? Can you give me a memory tool? I don't know. I don't know. I need more information than that, really. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Cool. What else you got? Okay. Is there a way to help me remember, for example, this door is big versus this is a big door? Well, the difference between those two is the agreement in definiteness. So when you're saying this door, هذا الباب كبيرا, but when you're saying this is a big door, you're saying هذا, but rather than el, you're making the next word indefinite. So the difference between those is in a matter of disagreement in definiteness between the dhamir and the nouns. But I don't know how that helps you remember them though. What's the major difference between modern Arabic literature and classical or old Arabic literature? Use of vocabulary, perhaps. In terms of like poetic tools that they use, like in terms of like poetic license and stuff, but both classical poets and modern poets use that. But it's mainly in vocabulary and reference to things as well. Like sometimes I might read a classical Arabic poem, and if I didn't know any of the context around it, I just wouldn't understand a word of it. Because sometimes even like there are names for people and places that were more common back then than are now. So like reading a classical Arabic text or a poem from a long time ago, that's it really. In terms of for the word mechanism, earlier, use it. Use the med to be safe. If you know there's a med, then use it. And if you know there's a hamzat qata'a, then you should use it as well. Any book recommendations for grammar practice, like a workbook? Yeah, there are. I mean, yeah, but I also, because at the end of your question, you've put but none of them covers anything in depth. But I don't know what you mean by in depth, because I don't know. Like I'd say to get to quite a decent level of Arabic, like Dawood al-Hajj's modern literary Arabic is pretty detailed. Like it served me fairly well throughout a degree in Arabic, but there are much more detailed texts than that. But if you want ones that are in English that are in depth, then I'm not too sure. Also, can you point me in the right direction from modern standard Arabic, a very beginner level, to a dialect? treat those as different areas of study. Don't think of it as like studying modern standard Arabic and then progressing into a dialect. Yeah, don't think of it like that. Think of them as completely separate, really. Like, even if your level of modern standard Arabic is very low, you can still access dialects. Yeah, and then it depends what dialect you want as well, because some dialects are very well resourced and then others aren't. Like Egyptian dialect and what they'd call like Levantine dialect are well resourced, even though those terms are kind of fallacious in a way because there's lots of dialects spoken in Syria, Jordan, Palestine, Lebanon. But anyway, so that's kind of my answer for that. As a student starting out, did you ever feel isolated or left out in a group of a few Aramaic speakers who didn't switch to Fusha, or a situation like that? Yes. So even as someone intermediate, definitely. I remember going to Palestine and there being whole conversations between people in the market that I didn't understand a word of. Yeah, and that was tricky. Okay, so is learning Arabic grammar fluently really essential when you are in the UK when the da'wah to youth is English and deep fahm is usually required through translation coming from a basic Arabic? Well, basic Arabic speaker, right? So you're not only learning Arabic grammar to convey the da'wah, actually in Arabic, like of course the da'wah is in English, right? But for you to have a meaningful understanding of the deen, I don't think that's achievable without some level, some understanding of Arabic grammar. So yes, I think it is for you to be a da'i with integrity. Then I do think you need to be making some effort to learn the Arabic language. Yeah, let me think about your question for a second though, to see if there's anything else. So I would disagree with you actually that deep understanding requires translation. I think a basic understanding requires translation. Deep understanding requires understanding of the source language. I don't think anybody achieves a deep understanding of the Quran without learning Arabic. Is there a dialect that is easier to hop into? Yeah, I think Levantine is easier. Egyptian's so accessible, like the amount of movies and resources and stuff that you'll have access to by learning Egyptian is immense, right? But there's also enough like that have come out of Syria and Lebanon and stuff. So yeah, but I mean, I still just think in terms of like pronunciation and in terms of accessibility of vocabulary as well. I like Levantine Arabic, but maybe I'm biased because I studied in Palestine. Assalamu alaikum. I want to do your course, but I'm afraid I can't commit to the course. Okay, well, I've got some good news for you. You have lifetime access to the program, so even if you do dip in and out, you're not going to lose anything. Yeah, so that's one little bit of good news. But then also, if you want to learn Arabic, you're going to have to commit at some point. It's just a case of whether you're going to do it now or whether you're going to do it later, And if not now, then when? And also, what do you mean by commit as well? Like, the Arabic in 60 Steps program is self-paced. So, I mean, even if you only have 1 hour a week, you can still do the program. It'll take you a while, but you can still do it. We have lots of students who take 2 years to complete the program. It's absolutely fine. Yeah, so I mean, but if you don't have like an hour or two a week, even if you do it like 20 minutes a day or something, like if you do 20 minutes a day, 6 days a week, that'd be a really strong routine for completing the program. Yeah, so don't worry about that. Actually, I've recently created a pace chart for the whole program as well. So if you want a good way of kind of timetabling how much you need to study each week and how much you need to study for each step, then that'll be a really good resource for you as well. My advice would be jump in and then send me a message when you're on the program, and I'll keep an eye on you. Yeah, and depending on your budget as well, obviously, like we have an academy as well where we have live lessons every Monday. I think Shahiba is one of our students actually. I think she might still be here, or she might have gone now. She might have gone back out on the boat. She lives in Trinidad, so she's got lovely weather there at the moment. So maybe she's not here anymore, but she's a student on the academy anyway, and yeah, and that's something that works really well for the students, because having live lessons, you're kept accountable. You know that you have me to ask questions to every week. You've got something regular that you turn up to. Almost every week I ask students what step they're on and stuff at the moment. So if you come back and for the 14th week in a row you're on step 4, then I'll help you to overcome that hurdle a little bit. Cool. Sorry, I missed out a few. So do you think Hijazi dialect used in Saudi Arabia is more easy than dialects in Egypt? My answer is I don't know. My wife grew up in Saudi Arabia, and I think the Arabic that she speaks is further away than Fusha than Egyptian dialect is. So I don't know. Sort of refreshing to hear an expert not understand a colloquial conversation. Yeah, I mean that's that's how it is really. But that was when I was in, I'd just done 2 years of studying Arabic. Like I don't know if that'd quite be the same for me now, but well, it definitely would in some dialects. Some dialects I'm completely ignorant about. Yeah. Where are we? How many days will it take to understand the basics of Arabic? Okay. Well, I'm going to assume you could study full time. That's not a correct assumption for most people, right? But let's say like you had some time off work, or you're in the summer holiday or something like that. I think you could get the foundations of the Arabic language down in less than a month. I'm speculating on a lot of things there, as a teacher who really who kind of prides himself on sort of tailored learning and stuff, I'm sort of biting my tongue really saying something like that, because there's lots of factors that affect your progress as a languages student. One of them is just your natural ability. Frankly, some people are just gifted linguists. Some aren't. I'm not a gifted linguist, so I had to compensate for that by giving myself more time and spending more money or getting more resources or whatever. There's kind of 4 main factors that I kind of boil languages progress or really anything in your life down to. And I think that you need to score a certain amount in these 4 things. So one of them is just how gifted you are. If you're a very gifted linguist, you can afford to put less effort into the other 4 things. I'm not, okay? So the next thing is how hard are you going to work? Is the next thing. What I mean by that is how many hours per day. I don't mean how many years you'll spend. I mean on the micro level, how many hours a day will you spend? So even though I'm not a gifted linguist, I had to put more hours per day in. I was willing to spend 12 hours a day, right? And because I'm a less gifted linguist, I have to put in a more realistic timeline as well. So there's how gifted linguist you are, what is your work ethic, and what's your timeline. And if you're, as myself, if I'm not a particularly gifted linguist, naturally, I need to extend the timeline and I need to extend the work ethic. And then the 4th one is resources, which usually translates to money, but it doesn't have to. If you're not a gifted linguist and you want to learn quickly, you're going to have to increase your work ethic and amount of investment that you make into getting good resources. So, yeah, those are a few things really. I mean, and what you've said is how many days. So you're talking about shortening the timeline. So if you're going to do that, you're going to need to be a naturally gifted linguist. You're going to need to invest in resources, and you're going to need to have put in a lot of work, right? So you kind of have to compensate with the other 3 if you want to invest less in one. Let me try to catch up on some questions. Jazakallah khair. Oh, that's Israr, by the way, isn't it? The Academy is highly beneficial and recommend no matter where you are in the program. Jazakallah khairan. I really appreciate that, my brother. And Shahiba is still here. You're not on the boat, Shahiba. Why are you not out on the boat? Enjoying the lovely weather out there. Yeah. Have you done any lessons in Arabic? Well, yes, but recorded, no, I don't think so. I'm planning to do a Somali lesson in Arabic. Because I've heard that there's lots of Syrians living in Mogadishu who use my Somali language videos. And I'd like to do something لإخواننا السوريين, something for our Syrian brothers and sisters. Yeah, because there are some like refugees who have moved from Syria to Mogadishu, and they live there and they use my videos for learning Somali. So I might do some Somali language lessons in Arabic. I think that'd be nice. Okay, here's an interesting question. Assalamu alaikum. Wa alaikum assalam. Is it important to pronounce the harakat of each word when speaking Arabic? If so, when would you pronounce the endings? So as a rule, you don't have to pronounce the last one on the end of a sentence, by the way. Sometimes I do when I'm teaching a lesson just to uphold consistency. Like if it's written, say it. So like in the earlier parts of the program, I'll always do that. But that's for purely educational purposes. In terms of speaking Arabic, it just depends how fasih you want to be. Like Arabs themselves, when they speak Aramaic, they use very few of them. There's like a handful of words in all of Arabic that will keep their kind of case endings. But words like shukran, afwan, abadan, da'iman, words like that, those keep their two fathahs on the end. But yeah. Which dialect should you start with after learning Fusha? That depends entirely on what you want to use Arabic for and who you want to use it for. Are you still learning Bangla? Not really. I kind of, took a step back from it from a bit. Yeah, but I might come back to it though. I really loved it, I've still got my Bangla books, and I'd like to get back into it, but we'll see. How beneficial is reading Arabic books alongside a dictionary for learning Arabic? So I think that's incredibly beneficial, so long as you're not reading so much that you're not fully practicing the bit you've done. Like I think it's very beneficial to read a paragraph like that and then use the language in that paragraph in many different ways, right? Maybe be a good video idea for us to do that live together one day. Like I'll kind of demonstrate to you how I study, because I like to do that. Like I like to get a short passage of Arabic, maybe only like 3 or 4 sentences, and I'll make sure I've understood them, and then I'll just spend a few pages just manipulating the language, like reconjugating the verbs to talk about different people and and stuff like that, writing my own sentences and things like that. So I think it's much more important to, rather than reading a book, reading like a bit and then making sure you have a real command over that language. I don't just mean understanding, I mean a command over it. Yeah. What else have we got? After completing Arabic in 60 steps, would one be able to understand the books/audios by scholars in the language? So long as you knew the vocab, yes. You would have the grammar to understand it, but the vocab, I'm not sure. If you were familiar with the vocab pertaining to that topic, yeah, you'd have a very good chance. We've got a super chat. I've never had a super chat before. What currency is that? Rub. 20 rub. Jazakallah khairan, Mihrab, may Allah bless you. That makes me so happy because we've never had one of those before. I've never had a super chat. So thank you very, very much for the super chat. But yeah, as I say, I'm sorry, I don't know what currency that is. But thank you very, very much. Huge shout out to you. Which Arabic books would you recommend for someone to understand basic grammar? I really like the Qasas al-Nabiyyin series. The first story, you'll notice the vocab is very simple, but very quickly when you get into the stories of later prophets, some of the vocab ends up being quite challenging, even like for students who've been learning Arabic for a little while. So I quite like that story. It's actually written for children, that book is, but I think it's really nice. And then in terms of like a novel, if you wanted a novel, A'id ila Haifa, The Return to Haifa, I think is a very accessible Palestinian novel. It's a very small, it's like tiny, and like books like this, but I think I actually have a walkthrough on this channel of the blurb of that book. Yeah, search like Ghassan Kanafani and like my name or something, and you'll maybe see like a 3-part walkthrough of me walking through the whole blurb of that book. But that's a really good novel if you want something to just kind of get into reading organic Arabic texts. Thoughts on teaching Arabic by introducing al-i'rab from the beginning rather than saving it for later. The Medina Arabic series is smart to introduce an i'rab from the beginning, in my opinion. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't know what to say. From very, very early on in the program, in the Arabic in 60 Steps program, our students know what for something to be mu'rab and to do i'rab of words, what that means. They learn that very early. I think that's something that's very hard to add on later. I think you're better off going heavy on things in the beginning when students have first got enthusiasm. Like students on the program, you'll know, like the first 15 steps are a very steep climb, right? But the first 15 steps, really, once students are past that, it's plain sailing, really. Like I'm a believer, really, and like I'm a believer of giving students that early. اللهم اجعل في قلبي نورا وفي لساني نورا وفي بصري نورا وفي سمعي نورا آمين ثم آمين. وعليكم السلام. Brother Ray's here. Oh yeah, Brother Ray's here, is he? Too busy to have a conversation with me earlier, but got time all of a sudden to come onto my live. You guys are going down in the rugby tomorrow, man. Anybody else watching the rugby tomorrow, by the way? I grew up really into rugby. Where I grew up in Cornwall, rugby is a big deal down there. And there's actually 2 guys that I played rugby for Cornwall with. I played rugby at county level. And there's 2 other guys that I played for Cornwall with who are now in the England team. And so we're playing Scotland tomorrow. And Brother Rayhan is from Scotland, so he's going down. Anyway, I digress. Someone told me Fusha is dying. Okay. Do you feel that's the case? No. In your opinion, is it being used less and less by people generally year after year? Well, no, it can't really die. Can it be less and less used? Yeah. I think there is a move towards the actual Aramaic being more commonplace in formal settings. But I might be wrong on that though. But I'm not really sure. Lights have gone off. I'm just going to move my body around a bit to see if we can get the lights back on. Sorry about that. I thought they were trying to kick me out. I've got the office until 6, so I will need to go soon, inshallah. But thought they were trying to kick me out. It's like the Spanish Inquisition in here. Israr Hussain, Jazakallah khairan, £5 super chat. Shout out to you. Israr Hussain is a student on the academy, and he's a great guy from Birmingham as well. So extra specially good. What else have we got? So words like shukran, abadan, yes, they are, even at the end of the sentence. You don't have people saying shukra or abada or things like that. You don't get people saying that. People say shukran, afwan, abadan, and things like that all the time. What else we got? All right, guys, we're going to have 5 more minutes and then we're going to wrap up. So what else have you got for me? West Midlands in the house, good stuff. I love West Midlands. Do you know what? I love the North, actually. Like if, my kids are in school and stuff and my wife's from London and everything, but if, if it was like just purely up to me, I'd love to live in the north. The north is so underrated, man. So many people come to the UK and like they just go to London. They only experience London, but the UK's got so much to offer in other parts of the UK. Speaking of other parts that have a lot to offer, Scotland, actually. Yeah, hopefully Rayhan is still in there. I don't know if I've offended him, if I've upset my brother Rayhan by making him feel bad for not chatting to me on Zoom the other day. But hopefully he's still here. Why is Al-Khaylu wal-Laylu considered such a great poem? I don't know. Yeah, don't forget to hit the like button as well, by the way, all of you guys. I thought the North had like 2 half-decent cities until 2 years ago. The Muslim communities up north are also, mashallah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly, man. I love the North. Shout out to Liverpool, shout out to Manchester, shout out to Bradford. In your knowledge, which dialect is the most similar to Fusha? Syrian. I read an interesting paper when I was at SOAS, arguing that the Sudanese dialect is actually the closest, and I found it quite compelling at the time. I don't remember all of the contents of it, but I might try to get a hold of that journal, and maybe I'll share it with you guys. But, yeah. When it comes to prepositions, we know that there's 17. What about adverbs of place? What you mean things like qariban and ba'idan and words like that? Yeah, I'm not sure. There's not like a set number of those. Like, to be honest, that those are kind of more of the things that you get in like traditional Islamic texts and grammar books. What's your number 1 all-time favourite poem or novel/writing? This question might have been asked before, so apologies for repeating. My favourite text to read was Rihlat ibn Fadlan. The reason is because, number 1, it's so accessible for students of the Arabic language, but also I love that text because I just love getting an insight into how cultures see one another. I'm just fascinated by that. I'm fascinated by how people from one culture come to learn about another one and how they perceive another culture. I think that's just so fascinating. And in the Rihla ibn Fadlan, yeah, you get to experience this, this like Orthodox Muslim from like the 10th century go to, probably what is today like Kazan, that sort of area in Russia, and meet the people who he referred to as the Rus. And it's just a fascinating text. What do you think about Arabic grammar works that are taught in the Indian subcontinent? Oh, I don't know. Sorry, I don't know. I'd need to like read up on that. What about Scotland? I love Scotland. I've only been a few times to Scotland, but I have a little bit of family history up there. My great-grandfather was born in Edinburgh, and I think my surname Burr is Scottish as well, hence the name Edinburgh. Like I think centuries ago, then the surname Burr, which my surname, it used to be spelt Burgh, like Edinburgh. Yeah, and he was Scottish. He was born in Edinburgh, and he served in the Royal Scots Fusiliers as well. Yeah, we have a little bit of family history up there, but most recently, obviously, my good friend brother Rayhan, he lives in Glasgow, and he tells me all about it and stuff. It sounds really nice. And also, my brother's done the cycle from John O'Groats to Land's End, which is like 1,000 miles cycle. He was like 19 when he did it as well. The man's a beast. I didn't really appreciate that when I was, because when he did that, I think I would have only been like 15 or 16 when my big brother did that, and I didn't realise what a beast he was to be able to do that at 19, because he did it in like a week, or like less than a week or something, something crazy. But and anyway, like the pictures and stuff, the experience that he said about Scotland, he was like, Scotland's the most beautiful place in the whole of the UK. Like some of the places where he cycled through the Highlands and stuff is just some of the most beautiful, picturesque places in Europe, actually, I think he said. do the Rihlat literature, like the Rihla of Ibn Battuta, tend to be single books or volumes, single books. The Rihlat Ibn Battuta is about this thick. It's the thickest one of the main of the Rihlat literature. Rihlat Ibn Jubayr is a bit thinner. Rihlat Ibn Fadlan, I don't know. I've only ever read one chapter in it, so I don't know. And when I read that, it was an electronic PDF version, so I don't know. But Ibn Battuta and Ibn Jubayr, you can get them in Arabic bookshops in the Arab world, and yeah, they're very easy to get, and they're one volume. Yeah. Do you prefer Ibn Battuta or Ibn Fadlan, and why? Good question. Okay. As a whole, Ibn Battuta. Because he went to Somalia. That's why I like it. That's something that I really like about Ibn Battuta. He mentions port cities and stuff. There's one called Zayla'a that he refers to in his Rihla. The Somalis call it Sayla'a. Somalis don't have a Z in their language, so they call it Sayla'a. And it's like a port city that still exists among Reer Waqooyi. The northern Somalis will know that place, Sayla'a. It's actually really close to Djibouti, like it's that far up. He refers to that, and he refers to even a language called Moqdishi in it. So he even refers to the Somali language in it as well. It's really interesting. Like he's there in 13th, 12th century, and he's referring to the Somali language being spoken back then by people in Mogadishu, and actually refers to the country Mogadishu by its name Mogadishu. So we know that it's a very ancient name and an ancient city as well. But so as a whole, because Ibn Battuta went to Somalia, I'd have to say Ibn Battuta. But in terms of if we're going to compare entry by entry, I think the style in which Ibn Battuta talked about another culture was maybe more amazing, and also Ibn Fadlan's language is more accessible as well. Ibn Battuta is not inaccessible, but he's perhaps a little bit more flowery in his prose. Nowhere near as flowery as Ibn Jubayr. Ibn Jubayr, that's a hard text to read. I've been in Arabic for 10 years. It's really hard for me. It's really hard for me. Some of the chapters in there are the language is so flowery. Ibn Jubayr is a poet, by the way. He's a poet and he's a courtier and stuff in Valencia is actually where he's from. And he's very highly educated Arab. His writing is just so flowery and poetic. It's beautiful when you can access it, but it's a real challenge. So in terms of accessibility for Arabic students, Ibn Fadlan, Ibn Battuta, Ibn Jubayr. Yeah. But then your question was specifically about Ibn Fadlan and Ibn Jubayr. So Ibn Fadlan, Ibn Battuta, sorry. So I'll just answer those for now. Alright, I've gone over my time, guys, but thank you all so much for being part of it. Thank you for being here for our first little live stream. And we'll continue next week. Next Friday, most likely will be at a different time. As I mentioned, my son has started jiu-jitsu on Fridays now, and unfortunately today I had to miss his first ever jiu-jitsu class, which I was just gutted about. Because we're doing this, so I may push this a little bit later so that I can go and take him to jiu-jitsu. And so next week, inshallah, maybe we'll do it a bit later, but it'll still be on Fridays, and we'll figure out something. Anyway, we'll continue doing this every Friday evening. Just so you know, in 10 minutes, there is my Quran with Sam series continuing on the Sam Martin Burr YouTube channel as well. So you can go to Sam Martin Burr on YouTube and on the Sam Martin Burr podcast as well, actually. So it's 6 o'clock, which is in 10 minutes. And episode 14 is on there. We're going over the ayah where Allah says, أَفَمَنْ كَانَ عَلَى بَيِّنَةٍ مِّن رَبِّهِ كَمَنْ زُيِّنَ لَهُ سُوءُ عَمَلِهِ وَاتَّبَعُوا أَهْوَاءَهُم. We're going through that ayah together. So that will be over on the Sam Martin Burr YouTube channel and podcast right now, or in 10 minutes anyway. And what else is there? Obviously on this channel, if you haven't seen already, we have our Arabic in 60 Steps extras every Wednesday as well. So those are the things you need to know. Thank you so much for being part of it. Last question, what type of jiu-jitsu? Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Yeah, that's what he's doing now. Okay, good. Thank you so much for being part of it, guys. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.